Hello. Hola. I'm Maria Luisa Boyce, UPS Vice President of Global Public Affairs. It's my honor to welcome you today. UPS has supported the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for many years, and I'm proud to bring this session to you during Hispanic Heritage Month. UPS's support of the people and businesses within the Hispanic community is present throughout our global footprint of more than 220 countries and territories, and in our workforce of more than 500,000 people. Our expertise in using innovation, technology, and online resources to help customers tap into global markets has become not just a way to foster growth, but an important strategy for navigating the market turbulence caused by the pandemic. As companies pivot, adapt, and change, agility and resilience have become top priorities. Today, you'll learn how international trade can help foster these qualities. During this session, you'll hear from international trade experts who will provide you with a deeper understanding of the USMCA trade agreement and what it means for your business. You'll learn about the benefits of tapping into international markets and how to grow internationally. On behalf of UPS, I invite you to connect with us after this session for one-to-one discussions in our virtual booth and networking sessions. I'm proud to be here today. It is a great pleasure and with good energy that I invite you to enjoy the rest of this session. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. Welcome to all of you attending today's virtual summit, and many thanks to my friends at the Hispanic Chamber for having me. I want to start by wishing you a happy Hispanic Heritage Month, as well as a special thank you to my friends Ramiro Cavazos and Rolando Pablos for their unwavering support for the Hispanic community in Texas. Texas and America are made better every day because of the contributions Hispanic Americans continue to make, and it's an honor to represent more than 11 million Hispanic Americans in the great state of Texas. As I'm sure many of you know, Texas has the 10th largest economy in the world and is the engine behind much of our country's trade. As I like to say, Texas and Mexico are married, with billions of dollars in trade coming across the border, and we have to make the marriage work. But while NAFTA was a huge success for more than a quarter of a century, it became time to bring our trade agreements into the 21st century. USMCA preserves the hallmark provisions of NAFTA while making changes to account for our ever-evolving economy. I was proud to support the USMCA, and I'm eager to see it in action. More than 27 years after NAFTA was signed in my hometown of San Antonio, we can once again celebrate the start of a new chapter in North American trade, this time through the USMCA. So thanks for having me here today, and stay safe out there.
Well, good day, everyone. My name is Rolando Pablos. I'd like to welcome you to this segment today where I'm accompanied today by Mexico's ambassador to the U.S., Ambassador Marta Bárcena. I'm so honored to be part of this effort. We are very thrilled to have everyone here today. Our conversation today with the ambassador will be around international trade, doing business with Mexico. I'd like to thank the sponsors, UPS and American Airlines, for sponsoring the segment. And also I'd like to thank Senator Cornyn. Senator Cornyn, in my opinion, is perhaps the biggest champion for this US-Mexico relationship at the Senate. He has done so much for Texas. He's done a tremendous amount of work in Mexico, as you can see up there. There's some images of a visit where the senator accepted my invitation to come to Ciudad Juarez. A few years ago, we went to Ciudad Juarez, we walked the streets, he met people on the streets, we visited maquiladoras, he met with local leaders, and I was very thrilled to see that the senator was definitely interested in making sure that this relationship moves forward. And so I wanted to thank Senator Cornyn and his staff for everything that they do. Embajadora, buenas tardes, ¿qué tal? Bienvenida. Gracias por estar con nosotros, le agradezco mucho su visita. Hoy quisiera platicar un poco sobre el tema de la relación de Estados Unidos y México, pero antes de todo eso quisiera pedirle por favor que pues, nos platique un poco de usted, de su puesto como embajadora, de su trayectoria, de su carrera y cómo fue que llegó a este puesto tan prestigioso, tan importante. para México. Le doy la palabra, embajadora, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Rolando. Es para mí un honor estar con ustedes hoy, la Cámara Hispana de Comercio, con mi querido amigo Ramiro Cavazos, con Leroy Cavazos, en fin, con todos ustedes que significan tanto para la relación México-Estados Unidos. Yo soy una diplomática de carrera. Ingresé muy joven al Servicio Exterior Mexicano, de 21 años, y uno de mis primeros cargos en el Servicio Exterior Mexicano fue justamente jefe de Departamento de Trabajadores Migratorios y Cooperación Fronteriza en la Dirección General para América del Norte. De ahí mi pasión por la relación México-Estados Unidos y por temas que son fundamentales para esa relación, como son los migratorios, como es la cooperación en materia fronteriza, en infraestructura, en saneamiento de aguas, etcétera. Y por supuesto la relación comercial. Pero ahí me acerqué mucho a la visión y a la importancia creciente de la comunidad hispana en general y de la mexicana en particular. Cuando yo era jefe de departamento en América del Norte, no había una relación muy establecida entre el gobierno mexicano y las organizaciones de mexicanoamericanos o hispanas en Estados Unidos. Había mucho temor a que fuéramos acusados de intervencionismo. Entonces la relación se manejó a través de la Secretaría del Trabajo. Y en ese entonces, pues en lugar de Unidos, era el National Council of la Raza, Claro Maldev, LULAC, etcétera. Y bueno, para mí fue un descubrimiento de todo un sector que desde entonces tengo claro que es con quien tenemos que trabajar para las relaciones México-Estados Unidos. Después me casé con un diplomático de carrera también, y entonces pues anduvimos por el mundo, por Italia, por España, por Hong Kong, Irlanda. A veces yo tuve que pedir permiso para seguirlo a él, después él pidió permisos para seguirme a mí. A veces estuvimos separados por más de un año, él se quedó en México, yo en Dinamarca, y los últimos 12 años de la carrera de él conmigo, pues yo estaba en Dinamarca y él en Finlandia, yo estaba en Turquía y él en Rumanía, así que durante 12 años nos vimos los fines de semana. Y con las hijas también estudiando en otros lados, una en Londres, otra en Ámsterdam, así que pues fuimos un poco una familia de migrantes también. Y sin embargo, pues pudimos mantener esa unidad familiar que es tan preciada para todos los hispanos y para todos los mexicanos. Siendo diplomática de carrera, trabajé un tiempo con Porfirio Muñoz Ledo en Naciones Unidas y después pues conozco muy bien al embajador Muñoz Ledo desde hace años, ahora diputado, y él me presentó hace muchos años al entonces líder del partido de izquierda, Partido de la Revolución Democrática, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Y lo conocí pues hace muchísimos años, después por razones, en fin, familiares, sociales, pues lo traté un poco más y cuando él ganó las elecciones después de su tercer intento y fue elegido presidente de México, pues conversamos y me pidió que fuera su representante en los Estados Unidos. Y pues para una diplomática de carrera, para un diplomático de carrera, pues no puede haber mayor orgullo que representar a su país en la embajada más importante que tiene México en el exterior, que es la Embajada de México en los Estados Unidos, y no solo por la embajada en sí, la relación, sino por todo lo que significa la coordinación con nuestra red de 50 consulados en Estados Unidos, una red consular excepcional que ningún otro país tiene, y que a través de esa red justamente nos acercamos tanto a la comunidad mexicana, a la comunidad hispana. Así que aquí llegué en diciembre de 2018, en enero de 2019 presenté mis cartas credenciales al presidente Donald Trump y una nieta de una americana, porque mi abuela paterna nació en Laredo y creció en México, pues es ahora la embajadora de México en Estados Unidos. Y es una prueba más de toda esta increíble interrelación que hay, ¿no? El otro día hablaba yo con Capricia Marshall, que fue la jefa de protocolo del presidente Obama, y ella, su mamá es de Guadalajara, su abuela de Guadalajara, mi abuela de Laredo, y nos reíamos porque decía que ella los domingos cocinaba mole bajo la supervisión de su abuela, y yo le decía que yo aprendí a hacer pancakes bajo la supervisión de la mía. Bueno, pues esto es la relación entre México y Estados Unidos y entre nuestras comunidades. Esta enorme interacción familiar, pero una creciente interacción de negocios y sobre todo algo que yo quisiera subrayar y que ha sido para mí un mantra desde que llegué. Uno, subrayar todo el tiempo la enorme contribución que la comunidad latina, hispana, mexicano-americana y mexicana hace a la economía, la vida social, la vida cultural de los Estados Unidos. Y decir que el Estados Unidos de hoy, de ayer y de mañana no se explican sin esta comunidad tan vibrante. Una comunidad cada vez más educada, una comunidad cada vez con más ingresos, una comunidad con muchos retos, sin duda, pero una comunidad vibrante, que cada vez abre más negocios, que cada vez ofrece mayores oportunidades y una comunidad que enriquece a los Estados Unidos y enriquece a México y en donde ahora hablamos en español, pero podemos pasar al inglés indistintamente y a lo mejor hasta usar Spanglish, porque ser bilingüe is cool. Entonces, una comunidad más educada, más inteligente, más preparada y que será fundamental en la vida política, económica y cultural de los Estados Unidos.
Completamente de acuerdo. Enhorabuena, felicidades, qué orgullo verla en este puesto. Esta red que tienen ustedes de 50 consulados es impresionante. Yo tuve la oportunidad de trabajar con los consulados aquí en Texas, con el embajador Carlos González Gutiérrez, un gran hombre.
Es de primera.
Es de primera y pues yo vi exactamente lo que pueden hacer, lo que hacen. Platíquenos un poco sobre esta red. Digo, son 50 consulados en todo el país.
Sí.
¿Cuáles son las prioridades para esos consulados, para la embajada? Platíquenos un poco de eso, por favor.
Bueno, yo creo que tenemos prioridades en diferentes áreas y hay temas generales que son prioridad. A ver, la prioridad número 1 para la embajada y los consulados es la protección de la comunidad mexicana. ¿Sí? La protección y la atención a la comunidad mexicana. Desde la expedición de documentos como pasaportes, actas de nacimiento, etcétera, hasta el estar pendientes de que se respeten sus derechos laborales, en este caso de la pandemia, pues dar seguimiento estrecho a cómo les ha impactado, que les ha impactado terriblemente, ayudarles cuando tienen fallecimientos, etcétera. Entonces, esa es la prioridad número 1, la comunidad mexicana para los consulados y para la embajada. En su aspecto de documentación y su aspecto de protección y un creciente aspecto que es el vínculo justamente con la comunidad a través de nuestras ventanillas, la ventanilla de educación financiera, la ventanilla de educación, la ventanilla de salud y la ventanilla de atención integral a la mujer, porque sin duda alguna la comunidad tiene muchos retos, entre otros, por ejemplo, la violencia doméstica. Y ahora en la pandemia, pues hemos visto que la comunidad se vio muy afectada, pero también a la comunidad se le reconoció a mucha parte de ella como los trabajadores esenciales que son, como una comunidad esencial, porque dentro de los trabajadores agrícolas, de los trabajadores en los rastros, en las meatpacking industries, pues los trabajadores mexicanos y los trabajadores migrantes han sido clave. Por no hablar de los Dreamers, que más de 30,000 de ellos han estado en la primera línea en pandemia, en hospitales, en tiendas de autoservicios, han sido también trabajadores sanitarios, etcétera. Entonces, creo que curiosamente nuestra comunidad ha sido fuertemente golpeada por la pandemia, la comunidad hispana en general, pero también muy reconocida por su enorme contribución. Entonces, ¿cómo equilibrar esos dos elementos para que ese reconocimiento pase a políticas concretas de mayor apoyo a la comunidad? Otra prioridad de los consulados es obviamente pues todo lo que es la promoción de México. La promoción de México como destino turístico, la promoción de México como destino de inversión, la promoción de México para el incremento del comercio entre los dos países. Y en el caso, por ejemplo, de los consulados de frontera, donde ahora está nuestro querido amigo Carlos González Gutiérrez en San Diego, pues están muy pendientes de cómo se llevan a cabo esa relación fronteriza y ese cuidado de las comunidades fronterizas. el comercio, que también ha sido impactado por la pandemia, el cruce de personas, pero también los retos en materia de saneamiento de aguas, de saneamiento del aire, de todo lo que es la cooperación día a día en casos de desastres. Entonces, el tema, atención a la comunidad, promoción de los intereses de México en todas las áreas, turístico, comercial, económico, de inversión. Y, por supuesto, también un área fundamental, que es el tema de la cooperación cultural y el vínculo en todo lo que es cultura con la comunidad. La cultura mexicana tiene una gran influencia en los Estados Unidos y debe de ser a través de la música, de la comida, pero sobre todo queremos trabajar y seguir trabajando para que cada vez se amplíen más la cooperación en materia educativa, en la formación de capital humano, en la formación de personas, y creo que en eso la Cámara Hispana de Comercio lo tiene muy claro, cómo ello es relevante. Podría hablar por horas de todo lo que hacen los consulados, pero creo que estoy tratando de sintetizar lo más importante: atención a la comunidad, promoción de México y esta cooperación cultural y educativa que estreche cada vez más los lazos, ya no entre gobiernos, sino entre sectores privados y entre personas, que es lo más importante.
No, de acuerdo, muchas gracias. Muy importante el poder saber exactamente lo que hacen como embajada y como consulados. Cambiemos al inglés.
Claro que sí.
I'd like to discuss, if I may, which happens to be the role that you're in, is the most important thing is the U.S.-Mexico relationship. The relationship between Presidents Trump and López Obrador seems to be going very well. It's a very respectful relationship. Presidente López Obrador was in Washington a couple of months ago. What is your take on that? It seems that things are going well as it relates to the relationship. Secretaries Ebrard and Pompeo seem to be working well together. Ambassador Landau and yourself have an excellent relationship. Yes, and so I'd like for you to please, tell us a little bit about that relationship and what President López Obrador's philosophy is about the relationship with the United States.
I think that for President López Obrador, it's very clear that the U.S.-Mexico relationship is a pillar of all Mexico's foreign policy, and that it's a very important relationship. And when he appointed me as Mexican ambassador to the U.S., he gave me very clear instructions. It says we have to find areas of coincidences and try to solve the differences, always in a mutual respect manner. And we know that there are many issues that we will never solve, but we will manage them, because the US-Mexico relationship is by far the most complex one. One of the reasons is that sometimes it's not a state-to-state or government-to-government relationship, but has these component of the communities, of the local authorities, of the state authorities. And so many of the issues of the US-Mexico relationship have to do with more domestic issues than the traditional international relations issues. So for President López Obrador to maintain a good and cooperative relationship with the US government is key. And I think he has found a way to establish a very fluid communication with President Trump. And basically also he had very clear objectives to reach. One was to underline all the time, as I said, the importance and the relevance of this relationship. The second one was to underline and enhance the presence of the Mexican community in the US and the importance. The third was very clear one, was to finish the negotiations and to reach the entry into force of the USMCA, which was not easy. Sometimes it was on the verge of being derailed, but with the help of many key congressmen from the state of Texas and California, among them Senator Cornyn that you mentioned, we were able to progress in finishing the USMCA, and now we are in the process of implementation. But he has also given a special priority and attention to the Mexican northern border region. He even implemented some measures in that region to make it more similar in terms of taxes and of value-added taxes with the US, the price of gasoline and gas, so that that helps for the development of the northern region of Mexico, the northern border region, and that it can integrate better and collaborate better with the US. I would say that an issue that we have been dealing together with the US was, particularly in 2019, the issue of the flows of immigrants and refugees coming from Central America and other countries for different reasons. And we both countries, we were not prepared for those numbers, so we had to tackle the challenge with creative ideas. But for President López Obrador, even the issue of migration is key. Either migrants from Mexico or from Central America, we have to address the root causes of migration. And the root causes of migration is giving opportunities to migrants to stay at their countries of origin, with opportunities in the economic area. And I think in that, you understand that very well, all the Mexican American community, the Hispanic community, and we would love to have more involvement and investment from business of Hispanic origin in Mexico and Central America. At the same time, having said that we would like to keep the Mexicans in Mexico and the Central Americans in Central America, we will fight always to the end to have the US at different levels, Congress, executive power, state, recognizing the enormous contribution of Mexican migrants to the US. And it is, those two elements are key, and those have been the priority of President López Obrador. So when he made a trip to Washington in July, as you mentioned, it was first, he wanted to highlight the entering into force on USMCA and all the opportunities it opens for us. Second was to strengthen the bilateral cooperations on health issues, on fighting COVID, particularly at the border area. And third, to underline the value of the Mexican migrant community in the US, and particularly in addressing the needs of the social and health services in the US.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the UMCA. You know, in my previous work on the border in trying to develop the binational economy, I always focused on the concept of the heartland and how important Mexico really is to the rest of the United States, the heartland, you know, the impact that our commerce, our trade has on those states that are far removed geographically from Mexico, but are definitely impacted in a very positive way by Mexico, by its manufacturing, by its supply chain. So you were at the White House when President López Obrador came. It was a beautiful ceremony. I know that Ramiro Cavazos was there as well. Now that we are into the USMCA, it's come into effect. What are some of your thoughts with respect to one, you know, the projected influx of companies nearshoring into Mexico and what Mexico is doing to prepare itself for this anticipated influx of companies? And also, you know, what are your thoughts as to what this agreement is going to do to improve the economies of both countries?
Yes, thank you. I think it's a very relevant question. I will start by saying that one of my big surprises as Mexican ambassador to the US, it's before COVID, I have been traveling to different states. And I was surprised to see that in many parts of the US, they do not realize the relevance of Mexico. Just to give some data, the trade between Mexico and Texas amounts to $216 billion a year. It is amazing, really amazing. Our second partner is California, and the trade of Mexico with California amounts to 79%, $79 billion a year. And our trade with Michigan is $69 billion a year. Just for a comparison, just with Michigan, is the equivalent of the trade of Mexico with Michigan, is similar of the trade of the US with Brazil, and is more than the trade of the United Kingdom with China. So when I see and I read all this obsession with China and this and the trade, I say, but why don't they realize that Mexico is as important or even more important? And all the 2019, Mexico was the first trade partner of the US. And from last month, we have become again the first trading partner. And in this sense, what we see is that the USMCA entering into force will increase this trend towards more trade between the two countries. What we saw in the pandemic, Rolando, and it was very important, is how much interdependent we were and how much we needed to be totally coordinated in what we deem essential sectors and to preserve the regional value chains. We discover many things. For example, it's an example that I always give. When Boeing called me and said, Ambassador, we need to keep our operations in the US going on, so you cannot close your factories. I said, what are you referring to? They say, well, give us a day. And then they came and said, we have more than 56 suppliers in 26 different Mexican states at different tiers, from tier 1 to tier 5. So just to understand the complexity of the value chains was a huge challenge for both Mexico and the US, the governments, the private sector. But we realized, and that was very important, and it was something that the CEO of Lockheed Martin told me, say, our suppliers in Mexico never failed us, while the suppliers in Asia and Europe failed us. So we have a great opportunity with the certainty that the legal framework of USMCA gives us, plus of what we learned from the pandemic on the relevance of the regional value chains, or as you say, we understood the importance of nearshoring a lot of production. And in key sectors, like pharmaceuticals, like protective personal equipment, like, of course, the automotive industry, aerospace industry. So what are we doing now? We are working very hard in Mexico to really focus on the sectors in which we would like to have a more integrated regional value chain on two aspects. One is how can Mexican producers can supply the US market instead of Asian producers or European ones. So one is to substitute the suppliers from Asia and Europe to become Mexican suppliers. And the second is, where do we need to attract more investment to the North American region, and particularly to Mexico, to strengthen a whole concept of value chains, in which we want to be, as a region, more less dependent on other regions and stronger. And that was one of the key elements of the speech of President López Obrador in the Rose Garden, how to regain the competitiveness of the whole North American region. So we are working on that as one of the priorities of the embassy and of the government. And the lead role of the nearshoring and the relocalization of value chains is being taken in Mexico by the Secretariat of Economy. And I will be very willing to work with you, with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Secretariat of Economy, the private sector of Mexico, the chambers, on addressing these particularly objectives, how to find alternative suppliers and how to attract more investment.
With respect to Mexico being open for business, what would you say, what is President López Obrador's message to US-based CEOs and board members of these multinationals who are looking to invest in Mexico, What would you say to them about Mexico's ability to welcome their investment?
I think that they can trust that we have a very stable legal framework based on USMCA. So you know what is going to guide your future relationships, which is in times of uncertainty is not a small thing. Second, that President López Obrador has said once and again that his government will honor all the contracts that had been signed. I know that there are some worries about future tenderings in certain areas, like energy and this, but we will honor the contracts that are in place, and then we will see how the progress is going on those areas. The third thing, and maybe for me the most important one, and President López Obrador knows this and he has been saying it, is the capacity of the Mexican workforce. We have a great workforce that it's more and more highly educated. We, for example, graduate in Mexico more than 100,000 engineers a year, almost 130,000 engineers a year. So that means that you can find more and more capable workforce in Mexico. Another thing that I have learned as Mexican ambassador in many countries is that the Mexican workforce is very loyal. There is a very low turnover rate. You know, companies like the Danish Lego, which I interacted quite a lot with them, they told me our more loyal workforce in the world is the Mexican workforce. And they take time to be open and to tell you what they are, their opinions. But once they have the trust and the confidence, they are very open, and they are great at improvising and great at innovation. So I would say for all the CEOs in the US, you have a pool of workforce in Mexico that it's really invaluable, that you will not find it that. And a workforce that it's much more adapted to the American mentality. I remember I was in a very high technology company in Tijuana. I will not tell you the name for discretion. They were telling me, we have two centers. They make software for research. So they were telling me that we have two centers, one in Bangalore and one here in Tijuana. What we see is that our communication problems with Bangalore are constant because they do not understand the American mentality. Here, we have some problems in Tijuana recruiting bilingual engineers. But once we recruit them, the projects run very smoothly because the Mexican understands very well the way American thinks. So this is something that may not sound very important, but it is. The loyalty, the training, the capacity of the workforce is key.
All those things are very important for a CEO considering a move or an addition of operations in Mexico. And it's clear to me that over the last 60 years with the Maquiladora program, we have a very robust and environment for manufacturing. I'm glad to hear that you're working to develop your workforce, because that is the top concern, is whether there'll be an ample pool of qualified individuals ready to fill those jobs. And so I'm glad to hear that from you. Now, with respect to doing business in Mexico, what would you say to Hispanic-owned businesses, to these Hispanic business enterprises, small to medium size, that might be looking to come to Mexico and invest and do business in Mexico? What would you say to them with respect to, one, the available resources that the Mexican government has to help them get there, and two, with respect to the opportunities that are available to them to do business in Mexico?
I think there is a growing spectrum of opportunities for the small and medium Hispanic businesses. And one of them, some of them might be not the traditional ones. What am I thinking? I'm thinking, for example, in e-commerce. Something that when we signed NAFTA, and for many years we didn't have. e-commerce can fill a void that we didn't have that was there for many years. The other great opportunity is, for example, in creative industries. You are seeing now Netflix and Amazon producing in Mexico series in Spanish. And I think in that creative industry, the Hispanic businesses have huge opportunities. Some of the series that are now being produced by Netflix in Mexico are the most popular ones by Netflix in the world. So, and you can see that in this new era of streaming videos and TV, you see countries like Mexico and Turkey filling the space that was only before were only the space of American companies in English. So e-commerce, creative industry, all the provisions of USMCA on small and medium enterprises. And what I would encourage the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is to work more with the Chamber of Commerce in Mexico or with the private sector organizations, with COMCE, el Consejo Mexicano de Comercio Exterior y Competitividad, with Canacintra, which basically Canacintra represents the small and medium manufacturing enterprises. And in that, I want to offer the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce all the collaboration and help of the Mexican Embassy to organize these kind of seminars that can be not general, but very focused on certain areas or on certain priorities. And I think we will be able to also fulfill another market, which has been badly affected by the pandemic, but in the future will continue to grow, which is the tourism market. We need to work very hard on that, and all the agro-food industry also. I think there are enormous possibilities, and also on the bilingual education. So these are areas that were not very much talked about during NAFTA and with many years, but these are the areas of the future. And of course, the high technology. I mean, the hub in Guadalajara, in Tijuana for higher technology, they are even the suppliers for companies as Apple, Facebook, Amazon, IBM, all the Silicon Valley. I think we have to tackle those areas. And in the future, one of the dreams that I've been talking about, even with people as Cástulo de la Rocha, is that he was telling me one day, that all people that are from the Hispanic community and the Mexican community, when they are in my hospitals and they are old, they don't want to speak in English anymore. They want to return to Spanish, and we don't have enough doctors or nurses that speak Spanish. So we need to collaborate better, for example, in health. I mean, maybe the US recognizing the studies that are made in Mexico in the most distinguished universities and be able to also supply doctors and nurses to the US that speak Spanish, or vice versa, that members of the Hispanic community can go and use their Medicare or Medicaid in Mexican hospitals, which the cost will be much lower, and they will have the attention in Spanish or in bilingual attention. So I think we have many areas in which we can work together, and we have to really identify which are our priorities and where are our strengths.
No, that's wonderful. You mentioned earlier Texas being, a top business partner of Mexico. As a matter of fact, we're each other's #1 trade partners.
Exactly.
And I don't know if you know, but I was born in Ciudad Obregón, Sonora. I grew up in Ciudad Juárez, El Paso, and spent, my entire adulthood here in San Antonio and Austin. So I'm a product of the border, and the border to me is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. The US-Mexico border is a very special place. There's always seems to be some type of issue going on along the border, but I think just like we need to draw attention to Mexico's positive impact to the heartland, I think it's important to also draw attention to all the positive things that go on the border. And that's why I'm so grateful to Senator Cornyn, because when I invited him to come to Ciudad Juárez, he didn't blink. He said yes, and he came down and he saw what we were doing in Ciudad Juárez. We brought down many people from Capitol Hill down to ask them to take a look for themselves. And we had excellent feedback from them. Once they were there, they realized that the majority of the things they hear about the border are not true. But now, and you mentioned it earlier, you know, President Lopez Obrador made some adjustments to ensure that the border economies thrive. But especially with this COVID situation, we're seeing a difficult time, particularly with restrictions in travel on the Texas side, or on the U.S. side, rather. We're seeing our retailers, you know, go through some very difficult times. These are retailers who are used to welcoming Mexican shoppers. You mentioned the concept of tourism, medical tourism going the other way. And so what I wanted to do is just have a short discussion about your feelings about what is going on at the border with respect to the border economies, the need for border infrastructure. You know, Governor Abbott here in Texas is very focused on ensuring that we have adequate border infrastructure, that we have bridges, and we have seaports, and we have rail bridges, and everything we need to facilitate legitimate travel and trade. So I wanted to ask you, you know, for your opinion and your vision for working together with the Hispanic Chamber to improve the economies on both sides of the border.
Yes, I think you have raised a key issue, and an issue that is very close to my heart. I have always said that the border, it's very badly represented and portrayed in DC and in other parts of the US. If you could have a country that includes the 4 border states of the US and the 6 border states of Mexico, and those 10 states, if they were an independent country, they would be the 3rd largest economy in the world. So that means that the border between Mexico and the US is one of the most vibrant regional regions in the world in terms of economy, but not only that, but in terms of social interaction, of cultural interaction, and opportunities there on shared environments. We have treasures like the Sonora, Arizona desert with the magnificent saguaros, but you also have the Rio Grande Valley, and you have the Big Bend and the Rio Grande. So we have a responsibility to take care of that border. Taking care of that border means also not allowing people to speak bad about the border. I mean, I get really angry when the border is equated to violence and drugs and crime, because it is not. We have problems of crime and violence, but it is not the most important characteristic of the border. The most important characteristic of the border is innovation, creativity, interaction, and binational communities, bicultural communities, and we have to underline that. One of the priorities of the Mexican embassy in its work with the Congress is to keep a very constant dialogue with the senators and with congressmen from the border states and at the border. So, for example, I was talking yesterday with Henry Cuellar. We're going to miss Will Hurd, that did not present himself for re-election. I interact quite a lot with Juan Vargas, and also with Raúl Grijalva, with Filemón Vela, with Vicente González. And for them, as for us, the infrastructure is key. Only tomorrow, Secretary Ebrard and Ambassador Landau will open in Mexico the annual meeting of the that we celebrate every year, a meeting on ports of entry, border crossings, just to see where are we, which are the priorities to go forward in the future, and we are going to review more than 20 projects to really enhance the infrastructure at the border, both at railway, cars, and this. Absolutely, I agree that these measures that have been taken to restrict travel at the border only to essential travel has affected the economy at the border enormously. And if these measures are not, will even have a more strong impact if they continue after October, because you know better than I do, which is the high sales season, October, November, and December. So I would say, I think the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce can let know the White House what is the impact of these measures. We're working with them, we're working with DHS, we know how the impact is. We have been working also hard on improving the sanitary measures at both sides of the border, of cooperating maybe on having more tests and tracing mechanisms. But if chambers, as you convey this message to DHS and to the White House, it can be helpful, because if they don't receive this message, then they are too far away from the border to understand the impact. And yes, we, through our consulates, we work very closely with Governor Abbott's office and also with Secretary of State Ruth Hughes. You have just reminded me that I have a couple of pending telephone calls with them. Governor Abbott told me that he wanted to go to Mexico, but then COVID came and we were organizing a huge trip with a big delegation. COVID came, and I think COVID derailed many initiatives that we had in mind. And we have to now see if we can do it through other means like this of the video conferences. But I am really thankful for having the opportunity to address you. I just want to reiterate, the embassy is also at your orders to work with you and to work for the benefit of the Hispanic community and the Mexican community in the US.
No, thank you, Ambassador. Your points are well taken. I think a lot of the public relations challenge that the border has really falls on the laps of those leaders along the border to get the word out. Right now, something I found very effective when I was promoting both the U.S. side and the Mexico side is to invite people from Washington to come visit.
Yes.
You know, we invited congressional staffers whose job was to advise Congress on border affairs who had never been to the border.
Yes.
And so we asked them to come down. I think, you know, at the end of the day, over the course of 3 or 4 years, we had over 100 people from Capitol Hill come down to the El Paso Juarez area to visit Juarez, to see it for themselves, to taste the food, to meet the people. And every single one of them, as they were leaving, thanked us for helping them truly understand what the border really is. And so for us, for Hispanic-owned businesses, especially along the border, that relationship is extremely important. That message in Washington and in Mexico City, because Mexico City is also far away from the border.
Yes.
And so I think we see that issue on both sides. There's a certain lack of understanding about the border. In Texas, Governor Abbott understands it. As you just mentioned right now, his willingness to always reach out to Mexico, is very important. His staff understands the importance of that relationship. And I'm sure the other governors, border governors do as well. But here in Texas, given the tremendous amount of trade, I mean, you mentioned the numbers. I mean, it triples what any other state.
$216 billion US.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And so in Texas, I see it as our obligation to ensure that we continue to promote legitimate travel and trade, that we continue to look for opportunities for our small Hispanic-owned businesses to do business in Mexico. And I'm so glad to hear that the embassy has projects in place to assist and work with businesses from across the U.S. who are interested in looking into Mexico, seeing what's available. And so with that, I wanted to thank you and leave you with the last word. I know that your schedule is very busy. We really appreciate you taking the time. We hope you can come to Texas. I know that the travel situation makes it difficult. I hope that Governor Abbott can get down to Mexico City with a huge delegation. Many years ago, we had annual delegations, particularly in the area of energy, with our Texas Railroad Commissioners and the governor's office going down to Mexico to seek opportunities. Texas has an office in Mexico City.
Yes.
And so, you know, that relationship is strong. I know that California and San Diego have reciprocal offices as well, and Sonora and Arizona. So there seems to be a tremendous amount of work being done at the local level. I just think that we do need to do a better job at promoting all the great things that are happening at the border. So with that, I'll leave you with the last word, and then I'd like to introduce our closing speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rolando. Thank you to all of us. It has been really an honor to address you today. I think we have a huge homework ahead of us. The implementation of USMCA, the taking all the advantages that USMCA is offering us, seizing the opportunities in increasing trade, increasing supply, in the regionalization of value chains. And I really hope that we will be able to fulfill those expectations that we have both in Mexico and in the US. And one of the main actors to be able to fulfill these expectations is, of course, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I will be very honored to continue to participate with you.
Thank you, Embajadora. It means a lot to us that you were here. You know, we talk about economic development, and in my experience, air service is a tremendous component of economic development, not only for tourism, but for moving executives and managers around. And American Airlines, you know, has been an integral part of allowing for U.S.-Mexico travel. And today with us, we have JC Liscano, who is a vice president at American Airlines, who would like to say some words. JC, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me well.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Excellent. I am well. So good afternoon to all our members, respective constituents. You know, happy and proud to be a member of the board of directors of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the chamber, I'd like to thank our esteemed participants, Senator Cornyn, Madam Ambassador Barcena, and Mr. Secretary Pablos. Thank you for participating in the panel, sharing your knowledge, expertise, and leadership, and giving us a closer look at the United States, Mexico, and Canada agreement. You know, as you mentioned, as the largest airline in Latin America and the Caribbean, at American, we understand the importance of conversations like the one that we've just heard today. They're catalysts for greater collaboration, for progress, and American is proud of the role we have in supporting that commerce and growth, as well as the continued strength of the economic relationship between the US, Mexico, and Canada. Of interesting point to note, since the pandemic started, we've operated about 2,500 cargo-only flights, but some of those flights have been filled with trucks that have come from Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Mexico with commodities like auto parts, aerospace parts, medical equipment, and PPE. So you would be surprised that in being in commercial aviation, that how important the transport trade is, even via trucking. For almost 80 years, American has served as a bridge between Mexico and the United States. And Mexico will always be part of our history as the second international destination flown by American Airlines. But even more so today, it's home to 24 destinations. And later this year, we're going to be expanding to 26 with the addition of La Paz and Loreto. Additionally, we are increasing service to Los Cabos, Cancun, and Puerto Vallarta from non-traditional secondary markets within the United States, as we are finding that the resumption of travel and the demand to these destinations is far outpacing other international markets. Our commitment to Mexico goes beyond this cooperation and extends to our more than 1,000 team members that we have in country. They are the heart of our airline and the reason why we fly millions of passengers between our two countries. Of important note is our two reservation centers, one in Mexico City and one in Monterrey, that help take care of our Spanish-speaking customers throughout the world. So we hope that today's conversation has provided much needed depth and substance on the USMCA, as well as a perspective on what this important deal means to both of our economies, businesses, and our communities. So on behalf of the USACC and American Airlines, thank you again for joining us today. We invite you to join us for our next session, the 2020 USACC's National Awards Ceremony, where collectively we will honor those who have left an indelible mark in the Hispanic business community. Thank you again.
Thank you, JC. American Airlines resilience is admirable, and we thank you not only for continuing to serve Mexico and Latin America, but also for everything that you do for the Chamber. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we close our session today. I want to thank you. I want to thank Ramiro Cavazos and his team for doing a great job. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias a usted. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Embajadora, muchas gracias.